You are nothing but a useless old woman. This is where you belong." Those were the last words my son Michael hissed before slamming the car door and driving away, leaving me stranded in front of a rotting shack buried deep in the woods. If you're watching this video, please like and subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're listening to my story of revenge from. I want to know how far it has reached. The wind whistled through the broken boards, carrying the smell of damp earth and mold. My suitcase sat at my feet, too small to hold a lifetime, yet heavy, with the humiliation of being cast aside by my own blood. I clutched my left hand against my chest. The wedding band I had worn for more than 50 years glinted faintly in the dying light. That ring was all I had left of my husband Henry and the decades of sweat and sacrifice we had built together. My name is Lillian Brooks. I am 74 years old. And this is the story of how betrayal stripped me of everything and how I found the strength to rise again. I was born in a small town in Ohio. My father plowed fields with horses, my mother mended clothes for neighbors to keep food on the table. From them, I inherited calloused hands and a belief that dignity is worth more than gold. When I married Henry, we had nothing but determination. He worked construction while I set up a sewing corner in our tiny house. For 35 years, I bent over that machine, stitching prom dresses, wedding gowns, and uniforms by the dim glow of a yellow lamp. Every penny went toward raising our 3 children. Michael, our firstborn, then Daniel, then Sarah, Henry, and I dreamed of leaving them something solid, something more than memories. Together, we managed to buy a modest farm outside Columbus, a house with 5 acres of fertile land, a barn, and a clear stream that sparkled in the mornings. That farm became our pride, our life's investment, our future inheritance. I believed the house would always be filled with laughter. On Sundays, Henry grilled chicken in the yard, while the children chased each other through rows of corn. I told myself the hard years were worth it, but as the years passed, I began to see shadows forming in Michael's eyes. Shadows of pride, of disdain, of something darker that would one day turn against me. And now, standing before this collapsing cabin, my husband, gone, my other children, far away, I realized that Michael had finally shown his true face. From the time Michael was 12, he carried himself as if he were above the rest of us. While Daniel and Sarah would run to greet me after school, Michael would stand apart, his sharp eyes fixed on my hands as though he were calculating their worth. One evening, I was finishing a dress for a neighbor's daughter when Michael walked into the sewing room. He leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, his voice dripping with disdain. "Mom, why do you keep doing this? No one respects people who sew for a living. I don't want to be the son of a laborer." I swallowed the sting of his words and kept the machine humming. "Michael, honest work is never shameful. These hands may be rough, but they built this home," he snorted. "One day I'll be someone important. I'll have money, a big office in the city. I won't stink of old fabric like you." Before I could respond, Daniel rushed in holding a toy plane he had built from scraps. "Look, Mom, it can fly," he spun in circles, laughing. Sarah clapped her hands and their joy filled the room. But Michael only rolled his eyes and left without another word. I wanted to believe his ambition was harmless. I told myself he would mature, that he would understand the value of effort. But deep down, the pride in his tone unsettled me. Years later, after graduating in construction management, Michael found his first office job. To me, it was a chance to prove himself with dignity, but he dismissed it as beneath him. At dinner one night, while Henry prayed over the meal, Michael interrupted with a smirk. "Dad, this job is humiliating. filing papers, answering phones. I deserve better than this. Henry set down his fork and looked him in the eye. Son, every great man starts small. Respect the beginning. Michael scoffed, pushing his plate away. That's advice for people without ambition. I'm not going to waste my life like you two. The table fell silent. Sarah's eyes widened. Daniel stared at his plate. I kept my head bowed, but inside, my heart cracked. As the years passed, Michael climbed higher. He started his own construction firm, wore crisp suits, and drove a new car. Each success seemed to widen the distance between us. I would return home from sewing, exhausted my dress, smelling faintly of machine oil. Michael would wrinkle his nose and wave his hand. Mom, couldn't you at least shower before sitting at the table? The smell of fabric is embarrassing. Henry clenched his jaw, but I gently rose from the chair without protest. Not because I was ashamed, but because I refused to argue in front of my children. I told myself again and again, he is young. He will learn. But I was wrong. Michael was already turning into a man who measured people not by their heart, but by the weight of their wallets. Time moved faster than I realized. Henry began to complain of constant fatigue aches that no medicine could soothe. I urged him to see a doctor, and when the results came back, my world cracked open. Pancreatic cancer already advanced. I remember sitting beside him in the hospital bed, holding his hand. He smiled faintly, his skin pale beneath the harsh fluorescent lights. Lillian, don't cry. We've had a good life. Promise me you'll keep the family together. I pressed my forehead against his. I promise, Henry. I'll take care of them. But deep down, fear hollowed me out. Michael barely visited during those long months of chemotherapy. His excuse was always the same. Mom, I have meetings. The company needs me. I can't just abandon everything to sit around. I bit my tongue until it bled, rather than shout back. Daniel and Sarah traveled when they could, but most nights, it was just Henry and me. I cooked what little he could stomach, measured out his pills, whispered prayers as I stroked his thinning hair. One early morning, only 3 days before our wedding anniversary, Henry slipped away in my arms. His hand grew still in mine, and I felt half of my soul leave with him. The funeral was small, and gray rain falling like the sky's own grief. Daniel and Sarah clung to me. Michael arrived in a black suit and dark glasses, embracing guests with the performance of a grieving son. But I saw through the act. Behind the tears that glistened, calculation lurked. After the service, he approached me, voice low and steady. Mom, don't worry about anything. From now on, I'll take care of everything. I thought he meant comfort. I wanted to believe I finally had a son willing to stand by me. That night, however, he drove me away from the farm. Where are we going, Michael? I asked, confused. To my house in the city. You can't stay out there alone anymore. It's dangerous. His tone was firm, leaving no room for argument. I clutched Henry's photograph to my chest and stayed silent. My grief blinded me. I left behind the farm, the garden, the cows, the chickens, the home Henry and I had built with decades of sweat. When I entered Michael's house, his wife barely looked at me. My grandchildren hugged me with joy, but I noticed the flicker of annoyance in their parents' eyes. Over the weeks that followed, I began to see the truth. Michael hadn't brought me to protect me. He had brought me to control me. At first, I tried to be grateful. Michael's house in the city was large and modern, with polished floors and tall glass windows. I told myself I could find a corner of peace there. But the truth revealed itself quickly. One morning I entered the kitchen, hoping to make pancakes for the grandchildren. Michael's wife, Denise, blocked my way. You don't need to cook, she said coldly. The kids don't like country food. Her words stung, but I stepped back. Later, when I sat in the living room, Michael frowned at me. Mom, could you sit somewhere else? You're right in the middle. I moved quietly to a corner chair, clutching Henry's photograph like a shield. Day by day, the rules piled up. Don't touch this. Don't go there. Don't distract the children. I began to feel like a ghost drifting in my own family. One Sunday during lunch, Michael's voice cut through the chatter. Mom, stop filling the kids' heads with those farm stories. They don't need to hear about cows and chickens. They need ambition, not your backward nonsense. My fork trembled in my hand. Daniel and Sarah weren't there to defend me. Denise smirked, sipping her wine. My grandchildren looked from their father to me, confused, their little faces tight with uncertainty. Michael leaned closer, his tone sharper. Do you hear me? You're embarrassing. I swallowed hard, pressing my lips together. For Henry's sake. For the children's sake. I stayed silent. That night, in the privacy of my room, I whispered into the darkness. Henry, forgive me. I'm losing them. The breaking point came one Friday morning. Michael entered my room without knocking, holding a folder. Mom, I've already transferred everything into my name. The farm, the accounts, even your pension. It's easier this way. My heart pounded. Michael, how could you do this without asking me? He laughed, the sound sharp as broken glass. You're old. You can't handle it anymore. Supporting you is already a burden. Those words pierced deeper than any knife. The next day he appeared with the car running. Pack a bag, Mom. I found you a better place. I hesitated. Where you'll see. Just trust me. We drove for hours, silence thick as stone. Finally, he stopped in front of a crumbling shack in the woods. The roof sagged windows broke in the air, heavy with rot. Here, Mom. You'll be better off here. Michael dropped my suitcase on the ground, climbed back into his car, and without looking at me, muttered, Don't call me again. The dust from his tires filled my lungs as I stood alone, clutching Henry's photograph and my wedding ring abandoned like an unwanted burden. The first night in that shack was colder than I ever imagined. The walls were damp, and the roof groaned with every gust of wind. I curled up on the stained mattress Michael had left behind, clutching Henry's photograph in one hand and my wedding ring in the other. My stomach growled, but I had no food. The silence pressed on me until every creak sounded like footsteps, every shadow a threat. I whispered into the darkness, Henry, give me strength. Don't let me break. By morning, hunger drove me to action. I found a few coins in my pocket and walked nearly 2 miles down a dirt road to a small village. A handful of houses, a modest grocery, and a cafe stood clustered around the square. Inside the grocery, a kind woman behind the counter looked at me with gentle eyes. You're not from here, are you? No, I answered softly. Just passing through. Could I have some tortillas and beans, please? She handed me a small bundle, slipping an apple in as well. On the house, she said, smiling. I blinked back tears. Thank you. Truly. Outside, as I sat on a bench eating, a familiar voice startled me. Lillian, is that you? I turned and gasped. It was Mr. Whitaker, a man I had known years ago when Henry worked construction jobs in town. His hair was grayer, his back a little bent, but his eyes were the same. What are you doing out here? I thought you still had that farm. I lowered my gaze. Henry is gone, and my son decided this is my place now. Mr. Whitaker's face tightened. That boy of yours, I never liked his arrogance. You don't deserve this. If you need help, you count on me, all right. I felt a lump in my throat. Thank you, but I don't want to be a burden. You're not a burden, he insisted. Everyone in this village helps each other. You'll see. That evening, with a bit of food in my stomach, I returned to the shack. The walls still leaned, the roof still sagged, but something inside me had shifted. I had survived the first day. I looked at my scarred hands under the fading light. These are not useless hands, I whispered. They raised a family, built a farm, stitched dreams into fabric. The next morning, I rose before dawn. I swept the dust from the floor, patched a broken window with cardboard, and lit a small fire outside to boil water. As the flames caught warming my palms, I realized something. Michael had wanted this place to break me. Instead, it would be where I began again. The days grew longer, each one marked by small victories. I patched leaks in the roof with scraps of wood, planted a few beans in rusty cans, and swept the dirt floor until it almost looked like a home. Yet hunger still stalked me, and loneliness crept in during the nights. One warm afternoon, I wandered behind the shack, searching for dry branches to keep my fire alive. The ground sloped gently downward, and through the trees I heard a sound I hadn't noticed before, faint and steady, like a whisper. I followed it, pushing aside brambles until I reached a clearing. Their sunlight spilled onto a ribbon of water flowing clear and bright over smooth stones. I knelt and cupped it in my hands. The water was cold, sweet, and pure, far better than anything I had tasted in years. For a moment, I simply sat there listening to its music, feeling as though the earth itself had answered my prayers. That evening in the village, I mentioned it casually to Mr. Whitaker. His eyes widened. A spring, you say, running clear. That might be worth more than you realize, Lillian. Worth, I shook my head. It's just water. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. You should talk to a lawyer. If that land isn't claimed properly, and you're living there, you might have rights to it. I frowned, skeptical. Michael had always controlled the papers. How could I fight that? Still a week later, Mr. Whitaker introduced me to Mr. Davis, a lawyer from the nearby town. He arrived one morning with a worn briefcase and a curious smile. "Show me this spring, Mrs. Brooks," he said. We walked together to the clearing. He bent down, tasted the water, then took samples carefully into small glass vials. After a long pause, he straightened. "Mrs. Brooks, this is no ordinary stream. The purity is exceptional. Companies would pay millions for rights to bottle water like this." I blinked at him, stunned. "Millions?" He nodded. "And since you've been maintaining the property and improving it, you could file for adverse possession. The law recognizes people who care for abandoned land." My heart raced. After all Michael had taken, after all he had tried to erase, here was a gift I hadn't expected. A treasure hidden in the very place he thought would destroy me. That night I sat by the fire, the sound of the spring drifting through the trees. I looked at my wedding ring glinting in the firelight and whispered, "Henry, maybe this is the answer. Maybe justice runs deeper than I ever imagined." The weeks passed, and word of the spring began to spread quietly in the village. Farmers came to taste the water, shaking their heads in amazement. "Mr." Davis prepared documents explaining that once the paperwork went through the land, and the spring could legally be mine. For the first time in years, I felt hope stirring inside me. Meanwhile, whispers about Michael drifted in from town. Suppliers unpaid, projects half-finished, investors pulling out. His once proud company was crumbling like sand in a storm. I listened without joy, only a heavy sense of justice settling into place. One Thursday afternoon, as I returned from the market, My old cell phone buzzed in my pocket. The name on the screen froze me, Michael. I hesitated, then answered. Mom, his voice was frantic, choked with fear. Please, I need your help. The company is collapsing. Creditors are at my door. You always knew what to do. Tell me what to do. I took a deep breath, my eyes fixed on the dirt path beneath my feet. Michael, when I begged for respect, you said I was useless. When I needed compassion, you abandoned me. And now you want advice. His voice cracked. I was wrong. I see that now. Please, Mom. I'll lose everything. But I hung up, my hands trembling. That night, he called again. Then, the next day. And the day after. By Sunday, the missed calls totaled 45. Each ring echoed through the shack, but instead of sorrow, I felt a strange calm. Life had shifted the weight of the scales. On the 46th call, I finally answered. Michael's words spilled out like a flood. Mom, I'm begging you. Just tell me how to fix this. I'll listen. I'll change. I closed my eyes, hearing Henry's voice in my memory. Take care of your children, even when it hurts. My throat tightened. Michael, you left me to rot in this place. You stripped me of my dignity, my home, my peace. And yet you still call me Mom. Do you even know what that word means anymore? Silence. Then a broken sob. Please, give me a chance. I said nothing more. I ended the call, the spring murmuring outside, like a reminder. Some lessons only come when everything is lost. But I knew it wasn't over. Michael would come, and when he did, it would not be for love. It would be for what he thought he still had a right to claim. Saturday morning dawned cool and gray. I was sweeping the dirt from the shack's front step when I heard the distant hum of an engine. My chest tightened. Only one person would come here, uninvited. A white truck pulled up, kicking dust into the air. The door swung open, and Michael climbed out. He was not the proud man in crisp suits I remembered. His jacket was wrinkled, his tie loosened, his face hollowed by sleepless nights. Mom, he said, as soon as our eyes met. His voice cracked more plea than greeting. I stood silent, leaning on the broom, watching him approach like a man dragging the weight of the world. I've been calling you, he went on, 45 times. I didn't know what else to do. Please, forgive me. I gripped the broom tighter. Forgive you, Michael. You left me here to die. You stripped me of everything. You treated me like trash. And now you stand here because your empire is crumbling. He flinched, lowering his gaze. I know I was arrogant. I thought I could handle everything alone. But I can't. I need you. Need me. My laugh was bitter. When I needed you, where were you? When your father lay dying, you were too busy chasing contracts. When I begged for respect, you gave me contempt. Tears welled in his eyes. He fell to his knees on the dirt. Mom, I was blind. Please teach me how to make things right. Like when I was a boy and I'd run to you after falling. I need you to tell me what to do. The sight pierced my heart. For a moment, I saw not the greedy man who abandoned me, but the child Henry once lifted onto his shoulders, laughing under the summer Sunday. Still, I held firm. Get up, Michael. A Brooks does not grovel in the dirt. Not even before his mother. He rose slowly, shoulders hunched. Then tell me what you want from me. I'll do anything. I turned my eyes toward the forest where the spring whispered unseen. What I want is respect. What I want is honesty. What I want is a son who doesn't measure people by money. His lips trembled. I can change. Please give me the chance. I shook my head. Change is not spoken, Michael. It is lived. And so far, your actions have told me everything. We stood in silence, the wind rattling the broken boards of the shack. Finally, I stepped aside. Sit if you wish. But understand this, you have no power here anymore. Not over me. Not over this land. If you stay under my roof by my rules. He nodded slowly, eyes filled with a fragile hope. But in the pit of my stomach, unease twisted. Michael had always been clever with words, skilled at appearing broken when he wanted something. And though I allowed him a chair at my table, I could not silence the voice inside me whispering, "He is still your son, but he may also still be your enemy." For a few days, Michael tried to play the part of a changed man. He rose early, chopped wood, even repaired part of the roof that sagged dangerously. At supper, he bowed his head when I prayed, and at night he sat quietly by the fire, as if the flames could burn away his sins. But I had known him too long. His silence was not peace, it was calculation. One night, after I had gone to bed, I woke to a faint glow outside the shack. At first I thought it was the moon, but then I heard the crunch of footsteps. Slowly, I rose, taking the wooden stick I kept near my bed, and crept to the window. There he was, Michael, kneeling by the spring with his phone out recording video, whispering into the receiver. Untapped clean water source. Worth millions. Don't worry. I'll handle my mother. Just be ready with the contract. My chest tightened. The words stabbed me deeper than when he abandoned me here. I pushed open the door and stepped into the night. Michael. My voice rang through the clearing. He jumped, fumbling to shove the phone into his pocket. Mom, I was just admiring the water. Don't lie to me, I snapped, gripping the stick. I heard you. Who were you talking to? He looked down his jaw, working, then muttered. Investors. They could help us both. Don't you see? We could be rich, Mom. I took a step closer, the spring murmuring at my back. Rich. You already had everything. A family, a home, a father who adored you, a mother who worked her fingers bloody so you could rise. And you threw it all away. Money is all you see, even now. He raised his hands as if to calm me. I can fix this. Just sign the rights to me, and I'll handle the rest. You won't have to worry about anything. My grip tightened on the stick. Sign. After you stole my house, my pension, and my dignity. After you left me here to rot. No, Michael. Never again. His eyes darkened, the mask slipping. Don't be foolish, Mom. You're 74. What do you know about contracts, about business? You'll ruin this chance. If you cling to pride. I straightened, feeling Henry's spirit steady my spine. What I know, Michael, is that dignity is worth more than any deal you could ever sign. And this spring, this land, it will not be yours. Not now, not ever. We stood in the moonlight, the water rushing between us like a living witness. For the first time, I saw his face not as my son's, but as a stranger's, greedy, desperate, and cornered. Finally, he shoved his hands into his pockets and muttered, "You'll regret this," before storming back to the shack. I stayed by the spring long after he left, listening to its steady flow. I knew then that the final battle had begun, not just for the water, but for my very soul as a mother. The day the court papers arrived, I sat on the wooden chair outside the shack, hands trembling. The letter bore the seal of the judge. The property and its spring are hereby recognized as the legal possession of Mrs. Lillian Brooks. For a long time, I stared at the words, letting their weight sink in. This land, this forgotten place my son had chosen to abandon me, was mine. Not because of force, not because of deceit, but because I had endured, I had cared for it, and I had not given up. When the representatives from the water company came, they spoke of contracts, royalties, and figures that seemed unreal. Millions, they said. Enough to live with dignity. Enough to ensure my grandchildren would never lack opportunity. I signed the papers not for greed, but with the quiet satisfaction that justice had returned. Michael came one last time, shoulders slumped, clothes worn. He was no longer the proud man with dark glasses at his father's funeral. He was broken, desperate. "Mom," he whispered, "I've lost everything. The company, the house, my friends. I don't want money. I just want you to forgive me." I studied him carefully. For a moment, I saw the boy who once ran to me after scraping his knee, the boy who dreamed of being someone important. But then I remembered the shack, the hunger, the words that cut like knives. "You're a burden." "Michael," I said, my voice steady. "Forgiveness is in my heart because a mother never stops loving her child. But forgiveness does not erase consequences. Trust must be earned, and you broke it. You must live with what you've done and learn from it." Tears filled his eyes. He nodded silently, then walked away. I did not stop him. Some lessons cannot be taught by words, they must be learned through loss. That evening, I sat by the spring. Its water bubbled clear and eternal, as if whispering the truth of life itself. I thought of Henry, of the promises we made, of the scars on my hands from decades of work. I thought of my other children, Daniel and Sarah, who had shown me care even from afar. And I thought of Michael, not with bitterness, but with a quiet understanding. Because the true inheritance we give our children is not money, land, or water. It is the values we teach them: dignity, respect, compassion. Some embrace it, some reject it. But in the end, each child must decide how to use what was given. I looked at the spring and smiled faintly. "This," I whispered, "isn't just water. It's a reminder that life always finds a way forward." And so my story ends not in anger but in lesson. Never measure your worth by what others take from you. Measure it by the dignity you refuse to lose.